What's up, everyone, and welcome to the end of Christmas. My name is Benito. This is a supplement to my 12-part Magic and Legends of Old Christmas series that you can find elsewhere on my channel. Speaking of that series, in the final video of that series, I mentioned that the very last day of the most generous interpretation of what the Christmas season is February 2nd, Candlemas. While, of course, in modern American and American style culture, Christmas is basically Dunsky, Dunzo, about lunchtime on December 25th, and we don't want to think about it anymore. Of course, the 12 days of Christmas last until Epiphany, January 6th. And if we're talking liturgically, the church calendar, that's Christmas. And then the Epiphany season, which is, also part of the Christmas season, or the joint Christmas-Epiphany season, continues on for, well, it depends on the church, but it goes on for a while. But, while you have areas that have strong carnival cultures that may start celebrating carnival as soon as Epiphany ends, the traditional end of the Christmas Epiphany cycle is Candlemas, February 2nd. That's the day when your Christmas decorations have to come down due to social, religious, and perhaps even magical pressures. There are consequences for leaving your decorations up past this point. You get a pass in 2021. Keep those lights up forever. IMHO. But anyway, February 2nd is known as Candlemas, but it can also be referred to as the Feast of the Presentation of Jesus Christ. You might have heard of him. The Feast of the Purification of the Blessed Virgin Mary. You may have heard of her. Also known as the Feast of the Holy Encounter. Of the third kind? Fourth kind. Holy Encounter of the fourth kind. The day commemorates the events that are recounted in the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 2, verses 22 through 40. That's the part after what Linus says in the Charlie Brown one. The actions taken there by Mary are based on the commandments from the book of Leviticus in the Torah, chapter 12, where it says, "When a woman becomes pregnant and gives birth to a male child, she will be unclean 7 days, as she is during the days of her menstrual impurity. The flesh of his foreskin must be circumcised on the 8th day. She will continue in purification from her bleeding for 33 days. She must not touch any holy thing or go into the sanctuary until completing her days of purification." Ritual impurity has to do with contact with blood and that kind of stuff. You can find out more about that on my podcast, Apocryphals. Listen to the ones about the Torah. You can find it on your podcast app of choice. Anyway, so that's what's going on in the latter half of Luke 2. The baby Jesus, seen here, was circumcised 8 days after his birth, January 1st. Which is the Feast of the Circumcision, at which point his foreskin was, according to the Syriac Infancy Gospel, also known as the Arabic Infancy Gospel, about which you can find out more on my podcast, Apocryphals, on your podcast app of choice. According to the Syriac Infancy Gospel, his foreskin was placed in a box of perfumed oil, which would then later end up in the hands of Mary of Bethany, who got conflated with Mary Magdalene in many medieval traditions, who used that box of perfume to wash Jesus' feet in a mixture of her own hair and his wiener oil. After which, the foreskin was given to Holy Roman Emperor Charlemagne by an angel who had it for some time and then lost it. And then there's various sieges and things that eventually ends up in Italy, where it was stolen in 1983, which I hope is a shockingly modern date for you to hear that Jesus' wiener skin was stolen by thieves from Italy. Or else, possibly, where else could it have gone? The ghost of Jesus maybe gave it to St. Catherine of Siena as a wedding ring that she put on her human hand. Or it could have teleported into the mouth of Bridget of Sweden, another saint who, shall we say, experienced physical effects of satisfaction from that surprise mouth encounter. Or it was in the mouth of a nun named Agnes Blandikin, who swallowed it over 100 times, as if it were a piece of egg, as she described it. Or else possibly, when Jesus ascended to heaven after 40 days, it became the rings of Saturn. So pick your poison as to what happened there. Anyway, 33 days later, Mary took the baby Jesus to the temple for herself to be purified by sacrificing the very Christmassy gift of 2 turtle doves, and also to present the baby Jesus to the Lord, seen here, center. He's the baby. Here his divinity was recognized by the righteous man Simeon, seen here in the center, the not baby, who had been told that he would not die until he had seen the Messiah, and also the prophetess Anna, who foretold that Jesus would be the one to redeem the people of Jerusalem. Simeon, in his praise of the baby Jesus, refers to him as a light for revelation to the Gentiles and glory to your people Israel. So this proclamation identifying Jesus as the light of the world is good enough to make the Feast of the Presentation a special day for candles. It's where light comes from before, electricity. So you can round out the Christmas Epiphany season at a nice round 40 days from December 25th to February 2nd, 40 being a number with some ritual significance in the Jewish and Christian religions. You can Google that one. Anyway, the primary practice on Candlemas among Catholics, Orthodox, and some Reformed churches, including Anglicans, Methodists, and Lutherans, is you bring your candles into the church to be blessed for use for the remainder of the year. Then you light some candles at night. Here you can see people singing with candles. It's pretty straightforward. If, however, you live somewhere cool like Poland, you know that Candlemas marks the coming of the Blessed Virgin Mary in her aspect as the mother of the thunder candle, who uses, yes, you are correct, you correctly interpreted, she uses a thunder candle to protect the people from wolves on cold February nights. Mary also has ties to candles because what are candles made from? Wax. Who makes wax? Bees. Beeswax. It's not none of, it's some of your beeswax to know this. Anyway, why are bees tied thematically to the Virgin Mary? Because bees symbolically are virgins, like her, the Virgin Mary. That's why it's in her name. Bees are traditional symbols of virginity because worker bees, the ones that make the honey, etc., the ones that you're more likely to see out and about, they play no part in the propagation of the species. It's only the queen and the drones who make any trips to the bee bone zone. Bees don't have bones, so the exoskeleton zone. So as a result, the bee becomes a symbol for virginity, ergo a symbol of Mary, who becomes Our Lady, the Queen of the Bees. That's a real thing. I did not make it up. You can Google it. Anyway, Mary, candles, thunder candles, fighting wolves, etc. In Spanish-speaking areas, such as Puerto Rico, Tenerife, the Philippines, Guatemala, Mexico, Peru, Virgin Mary is venerated on February 2nd as the Virgin of Candelaria, Our Lady of Candelaria. In Mexico, specifically, the person who found the little plastic baby Jesus, the muñeco, in the Roscón de Reyes on Epiphany, the king cake. If you found the baby Jesus, which could be a plastic baby, could have been a bean or whatever, you can see my episode on Epiphany for more about that. But if you found it, it's your job to dress up the Niño Dios, the little child God, dress him up in fancy clothes, take him to church to be blessed on Candlemas, like these people have done. These ladies all got the bean. Also, they eat tamales. That's cool. I like those. Anyway, the city of Puno in Peru celebrates the first week of February with an enormous festival full of music, one of the largest in South America, like one of the top 3 next to, Rio's Carnival. Enormous festival full of music, dancing, specifically a ritual theatrical dance performed that's known as the Diablada Puneña, which features dancers in costumes as angels and demons. So this is a nice syncretic conflation of pre-Christian ritual and then good Jesuit theater regarding angels and demons and the fate of human souls. Cool costumes. Cool way to spend a February, in my opinion. In some parts of Europe, including France and Belgium, Candlemas is celebrated with crepes and gold coins. These are, you might put together, those are both yellowish circles. The gold-colored disc of the crepes and the coins is supposed to be reminiscent of everyone's favorite yellow circle, the sun, which is making its return with the advent of springtime. So one tradition involves you hold a coin in your left hand, gold coin in your left hand, and then you hold the crepe pan in your right hand, and you try and flip the crepe flip in order to ensure your prosperity in the coming year. So if the crepe lands properly in the pan without hitting the ceiling or getting stuck on something or falling apart, good job, you did it. You'll have a good year. I'm going to need everybody to do good crepe flips for 2021. We need some good crepe landings. Anyway, the sun symbolism in these customs kind of gives away the game. The real deal with Candlemas is, why do we do it? Well, it's a festival of lights to mark the return of spring, because February 2nd is pretty much the halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So once again, all your Christian faves are actually pagan problematic. So at this point, however, if you're American or Canadian, you may be thinking to yourself, what a strange coincidence that Candlemas Day should happen to fall on February 2nd, the day that we, as the center of the known universe, acknowledge strictly as Groundhog Day. It's the totally normal day in which a large ground squirrel predicts the weather for us, and on which sometimes people find themselves in time loops until they improve as a person. We know this, we acknowledge this. Why am I talking candles, thunder candles, beeswax, etc.? What do groundhogs have to do with candles? Is this a coincidence, or is there some connection between this furry boy and blessed candles? What do groundhogs and candles have in common? Well, nothing. That's the video. Thanks, everyone. Well, okay, but let's just say notable days on the liturgical calendar not uncommonly used to predict the future, especially the weather of the future. So in mainstream America, Groundhog Day is pretty much the one, but British viewers may be familiar with the idea that rain on St. Swithin's Day, July 15th, signifies rain for the next 40 days. In Sweden, they have the saying Anders Slaskar, Julen Braskar, which means slushy St. Andrew's Day, November 30th, frozen Christmas. So if you got a slushy frozen rain on November 30th, it's going to be cold and frozen on Christmas. September 29th, Feast of St. Michael, aka Michaelmas. They say, if ducks do slide at Michaelmas, at Christmas they will swim. If ducks do swim at Michaelmas, at Christmas they will slide. Climate change has pretty much ensured that there aren't going to be many frozen ponds on September 29th, but that's the saying. And as we talked about in the video on Martinmas, the first video in my Magic and Legends of Old Christmas series, if Martin rides in on a white horse, you can expect a white Christmas. Where I grew up in the South, people from rural areas would say you could predict the number of snows you would get in the winter by the number of fogs in August. So my point is, this kind of weather lore is not uncommon. Specific days on the liturgical calendar, you pay attention to what the weather is on that day, and it's supposed to indicate a pattern for the future. So Groundhog Day is not the only one. Candlemas is not the only one. It is, however, ground zero for this kind of prognostication. So you got an old French saying, here it is, I won't try to pronounce French. I don't need anyone to tell me in the comments that their soul left their body when I tried to say these words. So you have this French saying which asserts that if it rains on Candlemas, it will keep raining for 40 days. I will tell you, when it rains on, this is Candlemas, Chandelure, Candlemas, it will rain for 40 days. That's what it says. It rhymes, kind of, in French. So generally, however, the sentiment it's rain here, but generally the sentiment is that weather on Candlemas is deceptive. If it's clear on February 2nd, it will be bad winter weather for a while yet. So a proverb that has equivalents in various European languages is, if Candlemas is fair and clear, there'll be 2 winters in the year, right? So if it is fair there in the middle of the winter season, you're getting second winter, right? There's even a nice rhyming Latin couplet here. Si sols planescat Maria purificante, maior erit glacies post festum quam fuit ante, which means if the sun shines on the purification of Mary, the ice and snow will be greater after the feast day than it was before. So that gives you an idea that this concept goes back a ways. Eventually, this idea of treacherous sunshine became attached to various hibernating animals. What do you think of when you think of winter? You think of furry boys who go to sleep during that time, as most of us would like to do. And of course, the animal most associated with hibernation is of course, the bear. So it's no surprise that in the French region of Lorraine, and I'm definitely not going to try to read this Lorraine patois, you can find this proverb that translates to, if it's fair weather on Candlemas, the bear returns to its cave for 6 weeks. 6 weeks? That should sound more familiar. There's a passage in the novel Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, which echoes this idea. He says, "It was the 2nd of February, that ancient Candlemas day, whose treacherous sun, the precursor of 6 weeks of cold, inspired Matthew Lensberg with the 2 lines which have deservedly become classic. Here they are in French. These mean, 'Let it gleam or let it glimmer, the bear goes back into his cave.'" So yeah, there you go, right? If the sun shines on Candlemas, the bear goes back into his cave to hibernate some more. Orthodox Christians in Croatia and Serbia also tell of a bear coming out of his cave on the day of the presentation of the Lord, which in Orthodox churches who use the old calendar, the Julian calendar, that's February 15th, not February 2nd. But they talk about the bear coming out, seeing a shadow, getting confused by it, going back into his cave for 40 days, approximately 6 weeks. In Germany, however, where bear populations basically disappeared a few hundred years ago, the lore shifted from bears to a more commonly seen hibernating animal, the badger. Look at that guy. Cool guy. In German, the word for badger is Dachs, D-A-C-H-S, Dachs, as in Dachshund, Dachshund, the badger dog. Little dogs that were bred to be able to shimmy down badger holes, and then you could yank them out by the tail once they grab that badger. So there, the saying was, "Zont sich der Dachs in der Lichtmesswoche, so geht auch für Wochen wieder zu Loche." So if the badger, der Dachs, if he suns himself in the week of Lichtmess, that's Candlemas, then he'll go again into his hole for 4 weeks. So there you go, 4 weeks, not 6, but yeah, if the badger suns himself in Candlemas week, 4 more weeks of hibernation. So as with many German traditions, the idea of a badger seeing the sun being an omen for more winter was brought to the United States by the German immigrant communities, who are known by the misnomer of the Pennsylvania Dutch. Of course, we have already discussed they are Pennsylvania Deutsch, Pennsylvania German. So these communities marked February 2nd as Dachstag, Badger Day. However, while the US and Canada do have terrifying badger populations, these spooky boys tend to live in the Great Lakes region, like Wisconsin, where it's their football man is a badger, and also the western portions of the country. So countries, both US and Canada. So as a result, in the Pennsylvania Dutch dialect, the word Dachs, now spelled Dox, D-O-X, started to refer not to this guy, but a different furry animal that stands low to the ground, the woodchuck, the whistle pig, or as it's known among the Pennsylvania Dutch, the Groundhog, which is literal translation of the English word groundhog. So celebration of Groundhog Day begins in Pennsylvania. where the Pennsylvania Dutch lived. You probably put that one together. You're smart. With the earliest known mention occurring in a journal entry from 1840 in Morgantown by a man of Welsh extraction who is commenting on the practices of his German neighbors. But by 1886, the full lore of the groundhog, seeing his shadow and all that, had been fully solidified among the Pennsylvania Dutch communities and was publicized in the Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania newspaper. Yes, that Punxsutawney, like in the movie. The following year, 1887, the whole public ritual with the pilgrimage to Gobbler's Knob, which, yep, that's the name of it. They still call it that. They've probably heard themselves saying it out loud, and yet there it is, where the people, they consult with the groundhog, and the mayor lifts him up in the air and talks to him in hopes that he doesn't bite his face. The groundhog, which is named Punxsutawney Phil, like in the movie, although he doesn't get that name until 1961. That stuff all started in 1887, and things kind of spread from there upon the publicization of those different rituals, customs, and even today Punxsutawney continues to have the largest public Groundhog Day celebration, thanks in large part, of course, to the cult status of the 1993 movie. I keep referencing the movie we all know, When Harry Met Sally. These days, crowds of over 40,000 people, not uncommon to be seen gathering to hear the prognostications of Phil. Of course, in 2021, that will not be the case. Groundhog Day celebrations will be private, secluded, and Phil will have to wear a mask. I don't know if whistle pigs can carry the virus, but who knows? But they also keep up the kayfabe that this modern Phil is the same Phil from 1887. He's just an immortal groundhog. He's not the only famous one, though. However, famous groundhogs from elsewhere include Milltown Mel in Milltown, New Jersey, Buckeye Chuck in Marion, Ohio, Staten Island Chuck, I don't know where he's from, Potomac Phil in Washington, D.C., Sir Walter Wally in Raleigh, North Carolina, General Beauregard Lee in Lilburn, Georgia, Shubenacadie Sam in Nova Scotia, where February 2nd is called in some areas Dox Day, maintaining the old German name there. Fred Le Moment in Quebec, Wyerton Willie in Ontario, Balzac Billy in Alberta, and of course, Pardon Me Pete. Anyway, if you're worried that your mainstream American upbringing has been candle-deprived by a groundhog-centric February 2nd, you can always pop by a Catholic church on February 3rd for St. Blaise's Day. Get your throat blessed by one of these bad boys. Yeah, that's it. Christmas is over. The goose is no longer fat. Put your creche away, take down your lights. Christmas is gone, and now it's just cold. See you again when the hooves of St. Martin's horse can be heard in the distance. Until then, have a good winter.